Hey guys, so usually I post either profiles or fights, but this time I'm going to try something different and make a video about a hypothetical hybrid. I also have many tank videos made from the channel's earlier days. If you'd like me to make them public, comment below. So without further ado, let's get right into it, presenting the one and only Mosausaurus. Or if you have a better name for it, comment below and let me know. So one parent would be the Mosausaurus, which is basically a giant aquatic reptile, quite similar to a crocodile. And the other side we have a giant shark known as Megalodon. We have a video of what would happen if they fight. Check that out too. So we're not going to talk about them fighting today, but what we will do is talk about something even more improbable. What if they somehow crossed and created a hybrid, basically? One thing we do have to ask ourselves, though, is if this is going to even be viable in the first place. Is it going to be a strong hybrid, or is it going to just be a flop? Another thing to keep in mind is that this is not how genetics actually works in real life. Creating this hybrid is impossible. But for the sake of the video, we're just going to keep it really simplistic. And we're basically just going to pretend that science doesn't exist. Because if we were to, it'd just be a whole complicated subject. So we're going to keep it simple right here when we talk about this hybrid. So first thing we're going to look at is just how big does this hybrid actually get, and the first thing we're going to look at is length. Now at the lower estimate, if we take the Megalodon and Mosausaurus lower divided by 2, we get 12.5, upper we get 18, so it would be a pretty long predator. Now for weight we have to consider how these two predators actually hunted, and it's actually very similar. They use the force of impact, and then for the Megalodon they use their jaws to crush down on their prey, and for the Mosausaurus they use their teeth to rip through it. So basically force equals mass times acceleration. The Megalodon focuses more on the mass portion, while the Mosausaurus is much more agile, it's much more quick, and can accelerate much faster. So really, if we take the center weight between them, which is about 42 tons, we have a good halfway point between mass and acceleration, which means the force would be roughly similar for each of them. So what we basically did was try to combine the Megalodon's mass with the Mosausaurus' agility and acceleration to get the halfway point for the weight where force is maintained. Next, we have to sort of think about how this would actually look, and what we can basically do is we take the Mosausaurus' base frame and we apply Megalodon features to it. So for example, we would bulk up its frame, we'd make its bones heavier, we'd make its muscle much more dense, and more of it, of course. One thing we would also do is remove the Mosausaurus' front flippers and replace them with the Megalodon's fins, which are much more adept for controlling a beast that's much larger. We'd make the tail muscles thicker, obviously, and the tail longer, which is better able to propel itself through the water at a heavier weight. Now, as for how it would look on the outside, it'd probably have a melange of the Mosausaurus' thinner, more mobile scales and the Megalodon's thick skin. So to maximize the creature's defense, it'd possess much thicker skin in more important areas, its neck, its upper body, while it'd have scales in places where it needs to be able to have more control, where it's not as rigid or armored. And that means it would probably have scales on the underside, its fins, and its tail. The beast would probably also have some sort of Megalodon coloration, which is very efficient with its darker upper half and a lighter lower region, making it excellent for ambushing from below. So let's talk about the snout, how it actually look. And their snouts are different because they usually hunted different prey. Megalodons are short and heavy and built for delivering tremendous amount of force on larger prey, while Mosausaurus was long and lithe, much more like a crocodile's. And it was niche-like. It wasn't great for chomping on large prey as Megalodon did on whales, but great for grabbing and crushing smaller food, tearing through anything larger or nearing to its size. Now, the hybrid would probably need to have both types of teeth because this would make it much more adept at hunting different foods. As for how the snout would actually look, we wanted to maintain the Megalodon's bite force, so what we would do is we need to shorten that Mosausaurus snout and broaden its tip so that it can support more pressure. This unique mix will basically allow it to take on large prey and still deliver an absolutely lethal bite force, as well as grabbing smaller food. Basically, we end up with something very similar to how an orca's snout looks in modern day. Now that we've completed what it basically looks like, let's talk about how viable it is. We basically just created a beast that's more agile than Megalodon, with a stronger bite force than Mosausaurus, and bigger and heavier than Mosausaurus, all together with a versatile diet. This giant hybrid was probably viable in both of these monsters' eras, as it can easily hunt larger prey like whales, like Megalodon did, and large fish and smaller Mosausaurus from the Mosasaur era. The beast would also be able to easily defend itself from the standard Mosausaurus. It's not that less agile, but it's also larger and more powerful, and it's more agile than the Megalodon, so it can easily take either one of them. This frankly is a really deadly hybrid right here that we've created. So yeah.